Welcome back to another Coaching in the Car episode. This podcast is brought to you, as always, from Coaching Process Wins. Let's get this thing started. I'm just getting in the car right now, and we're going to drive around, and we're going to talk. And I got something that is a follow-up to my last Coaching in the Car episode, which was about vision. And that preceded or succeeded, came after. I always get messed up on these big words. The podcast I did about a coach has to have a why. I wrap all this up to a very basic fundamental, and it's words. So the thing that you're going to hear me talk about more than anything in Coaching in the Car today are the words that we use. I think because it's something that we do without thinking. It's something that is just natural, literally rolling off the tongue. We don't think all the times about the words that we use, how we use them, and what they affect. So I think a coach, a manager, a business person has to have the fundamentals of words and how we use them and exactly what they mean. I'm going to go back again, just like I did in the Vision podcast, and refer to a Bible verse. And this comes out of Proverbs. And this is probably, people have their life verse. And this is the one that I know best. By no means I'm not a scholar, and I can't always quote chapter and verse. I know this one pretty well, but it's Proverbs 18:21, and it basically says, depending on what translation you have, version, but the power of the tongue has life or death, or life or death is in the tongue. And again, there'll be different versions of that, but the power of life and death is in the tongue. And that has, because it comes from the Word of God, and that's what I believe it to be. I thought about that during a very grave time for me. I think about it when I coach. I think about it when I talk to people. And, going back to the fundamentals of words, I think about it when I'm just alone in my thoughts. Let me just explain the grave nature of it. The power of life and death is in the tongue. So life would be a positive aspect. Death would be a negative aspect. If you got to listen to the podcast of Coaching in the Car that I gave about vision, I told the story when I was involved in a one-car wreck, and I'm laying down in the car after it rolled forward 5 times, and my toes aren't moving, my legs aren't moving, I can't get out of the vehicle. One of the points that I didn't bring up from the accident there at that moment, my insides were starting to fill up. I didn't know if I had, in the violence of that crash, I didn't know that if I had actually pierced something internally, and I was experiencing internal bleeding because I could feel literally something inside of me, like my stomach was expanding and expanding. Later I found out I had punctured my lungs and broken my ribs. I was completely numb. And that was causing something to go on internal, but at that moment I didn't know. And I didn't know if I was internally bleeding out. And I was totally lucid during the whole time. And as I said, I've never been I'm able to quote chapter and verse. I'm certainly not a Bible scholar, but I take it literally. And something, as they say, back row Baptist, something came to mind. There's another verse in the Bible, and I'm not even sure where this comes from, but the Word of God doesn't return void. I'd heard this somewhere, and I just didn't know that it was still there in my spirit. But as I lay there, not knowing if I was going to live or die, I repeated that part of Proverbs 18:21, and right there you could have held a gun to my head and said, "Where did that come from?" I wouldn't have told you if it came from Psalms, Proverbs, or Matthew, Luke, or John. I did not know. I just knew that in the Bible it said, the power of life and death is in the tongue. So what I did right there in that moment of not really knowing what was going to happen, and I mean really did not know what was going to happen, I said, well, if the power of life and death is in the tongue, I'm going to start speaking life. So I sat there and I go, I've got the peace that surpasses all understanding. I spoke that audibly as I lay there. Eventually, a passerby, somebody that was following me, that witnessed the crash and had already called 911 on their cell phone and said that the paramedics and the life flight were on its way to extricate me and get me out of there. I didn't know. And so I was just speaking to myself, no one to speak to. I just said, all right, I'm going to speak life, and the words that come out of my mouth. So I wasn't speaking to anybody particular. Didn't know if anybody was even around or saw me roll down that hill after that crash. But I felt like it was so important, literally in life or death, that I was going to speak life. Now, what does that have to do with coaching? What do words have to do with coaching? What do the words have to do with leading? What do words have to do basically with affecting people? Well, we not only speak life or death over our own situation, we speak life or death into the people that we're around. And because this is essentially a coaching podcast, and I'm a football coach, and most of the guys, gals that are going to listen to this are football people, but I try to apply it to the businessman, to the leader, to the guy or gal that have folks under them. Heck, even as a father or a mother, with your own children. The words that we speak, not only over ourselves, but are over other people. If we are to believe that the power of life and death is in the tongue, they have meaning, and they're not just throwaways. Case in point, again, biblically, and I believe this is in James, there's illustrations. The tongue is like a bridle in a horse's mouth. The rider on the horse is able to just gently tug the bridle and the bit of the bridle and the bit in the horse's mouth, and you tug to the right and the horse goes right. Here's this huge animal that man sits atop of, this just strong beast, and all he has to do is a gentle tug of that bridle and bit, and then the horse is commanded to go right. He gives a gentle tug to the left on the bridle and the bit, and the beast, or the horse, goes left. He pulls back, and the horse stops. That is comparable with the rest of our body, of our tongue. It has that type of power. Another illustration is like the rudder on a great ship. Comparable, you look at this big cruise liner. But then you look at the rudder that's able to pilot that ship to make it go right, to make it go left, etc. Comparably, that rudder is tiny when you stack it up to the size and the weight and the might of a huge ship. And again, there's an illustration of the tongue, and exactly what our tongue does to us and does to others. So me as a coach, when I speak to my players, I have a choice. I can build them up or I can put them down. I can coach them up, I can coach them down. I can speak encouragement to give courage, or I can speak discouragement. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Something that I learned at an early age about this. It was, I don't know, I was 8 or 9 years old, and I was going somewhere with my dad, and we were in the car, and I think it was like the county fair. And it just happened to be raining that day. And this is a small town country fair. And I'm sitting there complaining, hey, why is it raining? I wish it wouldn't rain. I hate the rain. I can't stand the rain. You know, negative rain about this, negative weather about that, negative weather about this and that. And he turned around to me in that car and he goes, son, he said, what can you do about the weather? And I said, well, nothing. He said, can you make the rain stop? I said, no. He said, can you make the sun shine? I said, no. He said, well, if there's nothing you can do about it, quit complaining about it. Shut up. He was just blunt, but I remember that all these years. You know, I was speaking misery. Why is it raining? Why is it cold? Why is it hot? You know, whatever we speak about the weather, that programs our body and our soul to, feel it that much more. And so just imagine when you're talking to the people that you're in charge of, and you, and I'm talking about consciously and thoroughly being honest about an encouragement. You know, that's a big difference between encouraging and patronizing, or hey, great job, or hey, attaboy. A true encouragement is when you speak something over somebody and you mean it. You're literal, you're sincere about it, and they know it. So you've asked somebody to work on a big project, or as a coach, you've asked Johnny to, particularly fulfill a big assignment. He's got a big kid over him, and he's got to handle him in his blocking assignment, etc. Let's say a right tackle's got to handle this All-American defensive end, in pass protection. And you speak life into the kid when you say, hey, I'm giving you this assignment. There's nobody else I want to give this assignment to. I know you can handle it. I know that you're going to put in the work to get this done, and you're going to come out of this thing, man, feeling so proud. Our team's going to be better for it. Our team's going to move the ball because of it. And I know you can do this, because I'm not asking anybody else to do this, Johnny. See, I'm building up that courage with those words. I'm speaking life into Johnny right there at that moment. Now, if one thing that you've heard in the podcast, and I talk about my experiences and things that I've done, I've made mistakes with spades on them. I've made mistakes with zeros behind it. And no doubt I have, in terms of, I don't know if it was because I thought I was motivating. I don't know if it was because I was challenging. Whatever. I don't know if it's because I was in a dead-gum bad mood. I don't know. But I have spoken words to people that are underneath me, whether they're an assistant coach or whether they're a player, and I've been discouraging. Some of the things that I've said, I'm embarrassed to even, repeat. Saying something like, if you don't get that job done there, Johnny, we're not going to be successful in this game. Man, if you don't do it, we're not going to make it. Those type things. Hey, coach, you're talking to your assistant coach. I'm going to tell you what, if that linebacker doesn't fill the hole now, I'm telling you, it's going to open up a gash in this defense. He's got to get that done. You got to get this. I'm telling you, he hasn't done it yet. Why do you think he's going to do it now? And you're saying these things. What are they hearing? They're hearing the don't and the not and the stop and the won't. They're hearing those things, and instead of it coming off as a challenge or a competitive threat, what have you, it's not building anything up. When I say something to an assistant coach, hey, now coach, these linebackers, in this scheme right here are going to have to fill that A gap in a big way. Now, I know that you got that drill. You remember when you implemented that drill on Tuesday's practice 3 weeks back, and they really did a heck of a job that week. I'd go back to that drill, and I'd really hone it in and make sure they get extra reps of that. And, you did a heck of a job, and the thing paid off. I'm bringing up something right there that reminds him of a past success. I'm reminding him that he had ownership of that drill. He implemented it. He coached it. It had success. So I'm not, I know you can do this. I got complete faith in you. I've given him, thought out, well-placed reasons that I believe that he can do it. All words. And it just goes back to the power of life and death is in the tongue. So I can speak life over someone. I can speak death over someone. And you can take those and you can supplant life or death for encouragement or discouragement. But as a leader, as a coach, as a teacher, whatever the thing may be, it's our job to take people where they want to go. They don't always know how to get there, and you take them there, you push them there, you lead them there, and those words don't return void, either positively or negatively. We're charged with the betterment of people, not only for themselves, but for the whole team, or for the whole project, or for the whole game. And to speak life is to, put in that project, in that game, in that practice, whatever the case may be, life-sustaining words. I tell you, the biggest lie that's ever been perpetrated on children, because it cuts both ways, is sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie. Especially when we care about something and we care about that person saying it. Sticks and stones, a spanking, a whipping from my dad would go away. The sting of that would go away pretty quickly. But the regret of disappointing him would last for a long time. And a hurtful word last for a long time. Make no mistake about it. And, we can talk about being overly sensitive or that type thing, but when you care about something that you're doing and you care about what that person you look up to says and does about you, and they say something hurtful, and that stings, that lasts. But now let's turn that upside down and on its head. Words are some of my greatest memories. You might get the trophy, you might get the medal, you might get the blue ribbon prize, and those things collect dust on a shelf someplace. But within your memory of the encouraging word that your coach told you, the encouraging word that your teacher gave you, the encouraging word that your boss or leader told you, man, I can still remember being a sophomore in high school thinking I had really done a poor job as the team's starting fullback. And I was the only sophomore to be playing on the varsity team right there, and I thought I had really let us down. And the coach took the time, my position coach took the time on Saturday morning to call me and call my mom and say, hey, I watched the film and Rick really did a good job. I mean, here I am, I'm 53 years old, and I can verbatim tell you what that coach spoke to me in encouragement after that game. And man, that picked me up. Things that my wife says. Hey, I'm proud of the way you did this, or I'm proud of the way you handled that. That I remember that. So if you can go back into your own athletic career, if you can go back into your own childhood, into your own high school and junior high days, and somebody you respected, a mentor, a parent, a coach that you really looked up to, said something encouraging, remember how that affected you. Remember how that elevated you. Remember how that pushed you to the next level. Well, shoot, think about what you've said recently to a college kid, to a high school kid, to a young person. Think about what you've said to somebody under you, an assistant coach, a junior to you. Have you spoken life into them, or have you spoken death into them? And how do you think that affected them? That's what we're supposed to do as leaders. That's what we're supposed to do as coaches. And again, not hollow, not insincere, not patronizing, but true, thought out encouragement speaks life, because the power of life and death is in the tongue. And let me leave you with this so that I don't understate it, but this applies to you and applies to your own self-talk is what I'm talking about when I say it applies to you. How do you speak to yourself? What do you say over yourself? And I'm talking about throwaway words that you said, they've rolled out of your tongue, and if you really thought about it, what did you just say? Well, my head's killing me. I'll tell you what, my hip, I'm telling you what, if this hip doesn't get better, it's going to kill me. Whew, it's hot. Good God almighty, it's hot. If I don't get out of this heat, I tell you what, I'm just suffering. You bitch over your situation, and it only makes it that more exasperated. You've spoken death over your. Again, and I say this because I want you to go back and listen to the podcast about vision. But when I talked about the wreck I was involved in, I talked to you about the paralysis. I had, just in that first hospital stay, I had 4 operations in less than a month. Then a year later, I had to have the destroyed knee replaced as a result of all that. So many bones were broken in both of my legs, and got a lot of metal inside of me. And somebody asked me recently, hey, can you predict the weather? Can you tell when it's raining? And I said, what do you mean? They go, you got that old bad knee, or you got this break, and when the bad weather's coming, I'm telling you what, I can feel it. My bones start creaking, and I get so deadgum sore, and I just know it's going to rain, and then it's raining, and sure enough, that's why my bones are creaking, and that weather sure has come. And I'll say, and I totally believe this, I said, no, I've never even thought about that. My bones start aching when the weather's coming. Well, again, that goes back to what my dad said. Son, is there anything you can do about the weather? Do you think that I'm going to speak that over myself? Yeah, my old knee, it really starts aching when that weather comes. Well, depending on where you live, it might rain every other deadgum week. So does that mean you're going to be sore as hell every other week? And I think stuff like that comes to fruition when you speak it. Yeah, my knee hurts, therefore the weather's bad, or the weather's bad, therefore my knee hurts. And you just say it in a throwaway, or, my head's hurting. Well, heck, your head starts hurting. And that's a real thing, because the power of life and death is in the tongue. So how do you speak over yourself? Now, that was all negative. How do you speak over yourself where there's life? You know what, man, I cannot wait until tomorrow. Good things are happening. I've got this planned. I'm expecting that. We're going to do this, and I'm excited. I can't wait. Hey, Saturday, man, the team, we are going to rock. We put in the work. The assistant coaches have put in the study. The kids are prepared. Man, I got confidence. The plays that I'm going to call and how we're going to execute them are going to, go. That business plan, we've gone over every T, dotted every I. The people that we're going to present this business plan to are going to be as excited as we are. It's setting up a great expectation. It's setting up a way of speaking life to yourself. So I don't want to lose that, as a coach, as a leader. It's not only what you say and how you're working with your words for others. It's how are you doing it for yourself. So as we land this plane, and I'm going to park this old car, and we're going to come to an end here on Coaching in the Car, I just want you to think about the words you say. And go back to, does a coach have to have a why? Go back to vision, because I think you have to have a vision for your program. But the nickels and dimes, the basics, the 1, 2, 3s, the ABCs of having a why and having a clear vision are all programmed from the words that you speak over yourself and words that you speak over others. I guarantee it's going to make a huge difference one way or another. So until next time on Coaching in the Car, keep up with us on Coaching Process Wins. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Coaching Process Wins. Hit me up any feedback or questions on our Twitter at Process2Win. That's the number 2, at Process2Win. Adios. Until next time, Coaching Process Wins.